Every day, we're bombarded with choices: what to eat, what to wear, what to say, what to do next. And then there are the bigger questions. Am I on the right path? What if I fail? What if I make the wrong decision? It's no wonder so many of us feel stuck, overwhelmed by the endless noise in our minds. But here's the thing: overthinking doesn't solve problems, it creates them. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What if the key to breaking free from overthinking isn't about having all the answers, but about shifting how you see the questions? Today, we'll explore timeless Stoic principles that can help you quiet the mental chaos, focus on what truly matters, and find a sense of calm in the present moment. This isn't just philosophy, it's practical, actionable advice for living a life free from the weight of overthinking. Let's take this journey together. So, what's at the root of overthinking? Often it's this: we're pouring our energy into things we can't change. We obsess over outcomes, replay conversations in our heads, or worry about what others think, things that are entirely outside our control. The Stoics had a name for this problem. They called it the Dichotomy of Control. It's a simple yet profound idea that can transform how you approach life's challenges. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it bluntly: some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are our thoughts, choices, and actions. Outside our power, everything else: other people's opinions, the weather, the past, even the future. The more we try to control what we can't, the more we trap ourselves in cycles of stress and overthinking. Think about it like this. Imagine you're standing on a beach trying to stop the waves from crashing onto the shore. No matter how hard you push against them, the waves keep coming. That's what it's like when we focus on what's beyond our control. We exhaust ourselves fighting a battle we can't win. But here's the shift. What if, instead of trying to stop the waves, you simply learn to surf? You'd stop resisting and start adapting. That's the essence of the dichotomy of control. It's not about giving up, it's about redirecting your energy toward what you can influence. Take a moment to reflect. What situations in your life are you overthinking that are beyond your control? Is it a decision someone else made that you can't change? A future event you're trying to predict, or maybe it's a past mistake you keep replaying in your mind. The truth is, no amount of mental gymnastics will alter these things. But what you can control is your response. You can choose to let go, to focus on what's in front of you, and to act with clarity and purpose. This isn't about apathy, it's about empowerment. By embracing the dichotomy of control, you reclaim your mental energy and create space for peace, even in the midst of chaos. How often do you find yourself lost in thoughts about the past or future? Maybe you're replaying a conversation from yesterday or worrying about a meeting next week. It's natural, our minds are wired to wander. But here's the catch: when we're stuck in the past or future, we're missing the only moment that truly exists, the present. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." It's a simple statement, but it carries a profound truth. The present moment is where life happens. Overthinking pulls us out of that moment, trapping us in a loop of regret or anxiety. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that the present is the only space where we have real agency, where we can act, decide, and truly live. Everything else is either a memory or an assumption. Think about it: the past is gone. It's a story we tell ourselves. The future, it's uncertain, shaped by countless variables we can't predict. But the present, that's where your power lies. Right here, right now, you can choose how to respond, what to focus on, and how to engage with the world around you. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're walking through a park. The sun is shining, the air is crisp, and the sound of birds fills the space. But instead of noticing any of this, you're mentally drafting an email for work or replaying an argument from earlier. The beauty of the moment slips by unnoticed. This is what overthinking does. It robs us of the richness of the present. The Stoics would urge you to shift your focus. Notice the sunlight on your skin. Feel the rhythm of your steps. Listen to the birds. This isn't just mindfulness. It's a Stoic practice of anchoring yourself in the now. So, how can you cultivate this presence? Start small. The next time you catch yourself drifting into overthinking, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what's happening right now? What can I see, hear, or feel in this moment? This simple act of refocusing can break the cycle of overthinking and bring you back to the present. It's not about ignoring your thoughts, it's about not letting them dominate your experience. Presence isn't just a mental exercise, it's a way of reclaiming your life. When you're fully in the moment, you're more engaged, more alive, and more capable of handling whatever comes your way. The Stoics knew this, and it's why they placed such importance on living in the now. Overthinking may feel like a giant wave pulling you under, but presence is the anchor that keeps you steady. It's not about perfection, it's about practice, and with each moment you reclaim, you'll find a little more peace, a little more clarity, and a little more strength to face what's ahead. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." It's a striking reminder of how much of our mental energy is wasted on things that may never happen, or things that have already passed. The Stoics knew that overthinking isn't just a distraction, it's a form of self-inflicted suffering, but they also offered a solution: cognitive detachment. This isn't about ignoring your thoughts or pretending they don't exist. It's about observing them without letting them take over. Picture your mind as a calm lake and your thoughts as ripples on the surface. The ripples come and go, but the lake remains undisturbed. That's the essence of cognitive detachment, seeing your thoughts without being consumed by them. In modern terms, think of it like journaling. When you write down your thoughts, you're not trying to solve them or fix them. You're simply giving them space to exist. This act of externalizing your thoughts helps you see them more clearly, almost as if you're an outside observer. You start to notice patterns. Maybe you're fixating on things you can't control or replaying scenarios that don't serve you. Journaling creates a kind of mental distance, allowing you to process your thoughts without over-identifying with them. Here's where the Stoic practice becomes truly powerful. By detaching from your thoughts, you're not ignoring reality, you're gaining perspective. You begin to see that many of your worries are just stories you're telling yourself. They're not facts and they don't define you. This shift can be incredibly liberating. Instead of being trapped in a cycle of overthinking, you're free to focus on what's real and meaningful in the present moment. So, how can you start practicing cognitive detachment? One simple way is to pause when you notice yourself spiraling into overthinking. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this thought helpful? Is it rooted in reality, or is it just a fear or assumption? By questioning your thoughts, you create space between them and your sense of self. You're no longer at their mercy. Now take a moment to reflect. What thoughts are you holding onto that you could let go of? Maybe it's a worry about the future, a regret from the past, or a fear of what others think. Whatever it is, consider this: holding onto it isn't serving you. The Stoics would remind you that you have the power to observe these thoughts without letting them control you. And in that space of detachment, you'll find a sense of calm and clarity you may not have thought possible. Cognitive detachment isn't about becoming emotionless or indifferent. It's about reclaiming your mental freedom. When you stop letting your thoughts dictate your emotions, you open the door to a deeper, more peaceful way of living. And isn't that what we're all searching for? A way to live fully without being weighed down by the noise in our minds. Life has a way of throwing curveballs, unexpected changes, losses, or setbacks that leave us feeling powerless. But what if the key to navigating these challenges lies not in fighting against them, but in accepting them? The Stoics understood this deeply. Take the story of Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers. Born into slavery, he endured unimaginable hardship, yet he didn't let his circumstances define him. Instead, he focused on what he could control: his mindset, his values, and his response to life's difficulties. He once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This wasn't just a platitude, it was a survival strategy. By accepting what he couldn't change, Epictetus found a sense of freedom and inner peace, even in the face of adversity. The Stoic principle of acceptance isn't about passive resignation. It's about recognizing reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. It's about acknowledging that some things are simply beyond our control, and that resisting them only leads to frustration and suffering. Think of it like standing in the rain. You can curse the weather, or you can accept it and open an umbrella. The rain doesn't stop, but your experience of it changes completely. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you've been working toward a promotion for months, only to find out someone else got the job. It's disappointing, even painful. But here's the question: can you change the outcome? Probably not. What you can change is how you respond. You can dwell on what went wrong, or you can accept the situation and focus on what's next. Maybe this is an opportunity to reassess your goals, to develop new skills, or to explore a different path. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop wasting energy on what's already done. So, what are you resisting that you could accept instead? Is it a relationship that didn't work out? A dream that didn't come to fruition? Or maybe it's something smaller, like a traffic jam or a delayed flight. Whatever it is, consider this: resisting it won't change it, but accepting it can free you from the mental weight of frustration and regret. The art of acceptance is a practice, not a one-time event. It's about training yourself to see challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities to grow. The Stoics believed that every difficulty carries a lesson, and that by embracing life's uncertainties, we become more resilient, more adaptable, and more at peace. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. By learning to accept what we can't change, we open the door to a deeper sense of calm and clarity, one that allows us to face life's storms with grace and courage. Overthinking often stems from irrational fears, those nagging what-ifs that play on repeat in our minds. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if things don't go as planned? These fears can feel overwhelming, but here's the truth: they're rarely grounded in reality. The Stoics knew this well. They believed that reason, the ability to think clearly and logically, was one of the most powerful tools we have to combat overthinking. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, the way we think shapes how we feel and act. If we let irrational fears dominate our minds, they'll color our entire experience. But if we use reason to challenge those fears, we can reclaim control. Think of your mind as a courtroom. Irrational fears are like overzealous lawyers presenting exaggerated claims and worst-case scenarios as if they're facts. Your job is to be the judge, to weigh the evidence and decide what's true. This is where Stoic reasoning comes in. Instead of accepting every fear at face value, you question it. Is this thought based on reality, or is it just an assumption? What evidence do I have to support it? By dissecting your fears with logic, you strip them of their power. Let's put this into practice. Say you're worried about an upcoming presentation. Your mind might race with thoughts like, what if I mess up? What if everyone thinks I'm incompetent? Instead of letting these fears spiral, pause and ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Maybe you stumble over your words or miss a point. Is that really the end of the world? Probably not. And what's the likelihood that everyone will think you're incompetent? Slim to none. By applying reason, you shift from catastrophizing to problem solving. You remind yourself that you've prepared, that you're capable, and that even if things don't go perfectly, you'll handle it. This practice isn't about dismissing your emotions, it's about understanding them. When you use reason to examine your fears, you're not ignoring them, you're putting them into perspective. The Stoics believed that the mind, when guided by reason, could find clarity even in the midst of chaos. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, what seemed overwhelming becomes manageable. So, what irrational fears are driving your overthinking? Take a moment to reflect. Are you worrying about things that haven't happened yet? Are you assuming the worst without evidence? Once you identify these fears, challenge them. Ask yourself, is this thought helpful? Is it true? What's the most realistic outcome? This simple act of questioning can break the cycle of overthinking and bring you back to a place of calm. Reason isn't just a tool, it's a way of seeing the world. When you approach your thoughts with logic and clarity, you stop being a victim of your fears and start being the architect of your peace. The Stoics knew that the mind, when trained, could be our greatest ally, and with each fear you dismantle, you'll find a little more freedom, a little more confidence, and a little more space to breathe. What's the worst that could happen? It's a question we often avoid because it feels uncomfortable, even scary. But what if leaning into that discomfort could actually set you free? This is the heart of the Stoic practice of negative visualization, a powerful tool for reducing anxiety about the future. Instead of running from our fears, negative visualization invites us to confront them head-on. By imagining the worst-case scenario, we can prepare ourselves mentally, emotionally, and even practically. It's not about dwelling on negativity, it's about building resilience and finding gratitude in the present moment. The Stoics believed that by envisioning what could go wrong, we strip those fears of their power. Seneca, for example, would regularly remind himself of life's impermanence, not to foster despair, but to cultivate appreciation for what he had. He wrote, "He who is brave in facing misfortunes is also brave in bearing blessings." In other words, when we're prepared for the worst, we're better equipped to handle whatever comes our way, and we're more likely to cherish the good when it arrives. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're preparing for a job interview. Your mind might be swirling with what ifs. What if I blank on a question? What if they don't like me? What if I don't get the job? Negative visualization encourages you to take those fears and explore them fully. Picture the worst-case scenario. Maybe you stumble over your words or the interviewer seems unimpressed. Now ask yourself, could I survive that? Could I learn from it? The answer is almost always yes. By facing these fears in your mind, you realize they're not as catastrophic as they seem. And that realization can bring a surprising sense of calm. But negative visualization isn't just about preparing for failure, it's also about appreciating what you have. When you imagine losing something, a job, a relationship, even your health, you're reminded of its value. It's like holding a glass of water. You don't think much of it until you're thirsty. By mentally rehearsing loss, you cultivate gratitude for the present. So, how could negative visualization help you face your fears? Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, or a big decision that's keeping you up at night. What would happen if you allowed yourself to imagine the worst outcome? You might find that it's not as terrifying as you thought, and that you're stronger than you realized. This practice isn't about inviting negativity into your life. It's about building the mental strength to handle whatever life throws your way. By confronting your fears, you reclaim your power. And in that space of courage, you'll find not just peace, but a deeper appreciation for the life you're living right now. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. It's a stark reminder of life's fleeting nature, but also a profound call to focus on what truly matters. The Stoics didn't see impermanence as something to fear. They saw it as a tool for clarity. By recognizing that everything is temporary, we can let go of the trivial worries that consume so much of our mental energy. The idea of impermanence isn't meant to make us anxious about the future. It's meant to ground us in the present, helping us see how small many of our overthinking patterns really are in the grand scheme of things. Take, for example, the Stoic response to loss. When faced with the death of a loved one, the Stoics didn't deny their grief. Instead, they used the reality of impermanence to reframe their perspective. They reminded themselves that loss is an inevitable part of life, and that clinging to what's gone only prolongs suffering. Epictetus, who endured great personal hardship, taught that we should love and appreciate what we have while we have it, but never become so attached that we lose ourselves when it's gone. This isn't about being cold or detached, it's about finding peace in the ebb and flow of life. Let's bring this into your own life for a moment. Think about something you're overthinking right now. Maybe it's a disagreement with a friend, a mistake at work, or a decision you're struggling to make. Now ask yourself, will this matter in a year, 5 years? A decade? Chances are the answer is no. The things we obsess over today often become distant memories tomorrow. The Stoics would urge you to zoom out to see your worries in the context of your entire life. When you do, you'll likely find that many of them are smaller than they feel in the moment. Impermanence isn't just a philosophical concept, it's a practical tool for reducing overthinking. When you remind yourself that nothing lasts forever, you're less likely to get stuck in mental loops about things you can't control. You start to see challenges as temporary, setbacks as fleeting, and even successes as moments to be savored rather than clung to. This perspective doesn't diminish the importance of your experiences, it simply puts them in their proper place. So, what would it look like to embrace impermanence in your daily life? It might mean letting go of a grudge that's been weighing on you, or forgiving yourself for a mistake you can't undo. It might mean taking a deep breath and reminding yourself that today's stress won't last forever. Or it might mean savoring the good moments more fully, knowing they won't always be here. The Stoics didn't just accept impermanence, they used it as a lens to live more intentionally, more fully, and with greater peace. Life's impermanence isn't something to mourn, it's something to embrace. It's a reminder to focus on what's meaningful, to let go of what's not, and to find beauty in the fleeting nature of it all. When you stop overthinking and start living with this awareness, you'll find that the weight of your worries begins to lift. And in that space, you'll discover something even more valuable, the freedom to live fully, right here, right now. Overthinking often begins with a simple question: why don't I have what I want? Whether it's a dream job, a perfect relationship, or a sense of fulfillment, unmet desires can stir up a storm of mental chaos. The Stoics had a name for this struggle: the discipline of desire. At its core, this discipline is about aligning your wants with what's truly within your control, focusing not on external outcomes, but on your own actions, values, and character. As Epictetus put it, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. In other words, when we stop chasing after what we can't have and start valuing what we can do, we find a deeper sense of contentment. Let's break this down. The discipline of desire isn't about giving up your dreams or settling for less. It's about shifting your focus to what you can influence, your effort, your attitude, your choices. Think of it like planting a tree. You can water it, give it sunlight, and nurture its growth, but you can't force it to bear fruit on demand. The same is true for our desires. We can work toward our goals, but we can't control the outcomes. The Stoics would argue that true peace comes from valuing the process, not just the result. So, how can you apply this in your own life? Start by setting realistic, virtue-aligned goals. instead of fixating on external rewards like a promotion or someone else's approval. Focus on what you can control. For example, if you're striving for a new role at work, your goal might be to improve your skills, take on challenging projects, or build stronger relationships with your team. These are things within your power. The outcome, that's up to circumstance. By shifting your focus to the effort, you reduce the mental strain of overthinking and find satisfaction in the process itself. Now take a moment to reflect. What desires are causing you unnecessary stress? Are you chasing something that's entirely outside your control, like someone else's opinion or a specific outcome? Or are you placing too much weight on achieving perfection, only to feel disappointed when reality falls short? The Stoics would remind you that true contentment comes from within, from aligning your desires with what's virtuous, meaningful, and within your reach. The discipline of desire isn't about diminishing your ambitions. It's about redefining success. When you stop measuring your worth by external achievements and start valuing your effort, your integrity, and your growth, you free yourself from the cycle of overthinking. You'll begin to see that the most fulfilling desires are those rooted in self-mastery, not external validation. And in that shift, you'll find a deeper, more lasting sense of peace. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This simple yet profound statement captures the essence of gratitude, a practice that can transform how we see our lives and quiet the noise of overthinking. When we're caught in cycles of worry and mental chatter, it's easy to focus on what's missing. The promotion we didn't get, the relationship that ended, the goals we haven't yet achieved. But gratitude shifts our perspective. It reminds us of what we already have, grounding us in the present and helping us see the abundance that surrounds us. The Stoics understood the power of gratitude long before it became a modern self-help buzzword. They saw it as a way to cultivate contentment and resilience, no matter the circumstances. Gratitude isn't about ignoring life's challenges. It's about finding light even in the darkest moments. It's a practice of focusing on what's within our control, our ability to appreciate, to notice, and to find meaning in the small, everyday details. Take, for example, the modern practice of keeping a gratitude journal. Every day, you write down 3 things you're thankful for. It could be as simple as a warm cup of coffee, a kind word from a friend, or the way the sunlight filters through the trees. Over time, this habit rewires your brain to notice the good rather than obsess over the bad. Studies have even shown that gratitude practices can reduce stress, improve sleep, and boost overall well-being. It's not magic, it's mindfulness in action. But gratitude isn't just about listing things we're thankful for. It's about truly feeling that appreciation. It's about pausing in the midst of a busy day to savor a moment, to acknowledge the people and experiences that enrich our lives. The Stoics believed that gratitude wasn't just a feeling, it was an action. By actively practicing gratitude, we train ourselves to see the world differently, to recognize the value in what we already have rather than constantly chasing what we don't. So how can you start incorporating gratitude into your life? Begin small. At the end of each day, take a moment to reflect what brought you joy today. What made you feel supported or inspired? You don't need grand gestures or life-changing events sometimes. It's the smallest moments that hold the most meaning. By making gratitude a daily habit, you'll find that your focus shifts from what's missing to what's present, from what's wrong to what's right. Now, here's a question to reflect on. What are 3 things you're grateful for today? Maybe it's the sound of rain on your window, a text from a loved one, or even the strength you showed in facing a challenge. Whatever it is, take a moment to sit with that feeling of appreciation. Gratitude isn't just a practice, it's a way of seeing the world, one that can bring clarity, calm, and a deeper sense of connection to your life. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, gratitude is an anchor. It reminds us that even in the midst of struggle, there is always something to be thankful for. And when we cultivate that mindset, overthinking loses its grip. We stop fixating on what we can't control and start appreciating what we can. Gratitude isn't just a tool for reducing stress, it's a pathway to a richer, more meaningful life. What kind of person do you want to be? It's a question that cuts straight to the core of who we are and who we aspire to become. For the Stoics, the answer to this question was simple: a virtuous person. They believed that virtue, living with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, was the highest good, the ultimate measure of a meaningful life. Everything else, wealth, status, success, was secondary. Why? Because while external achievements can be taken away, your character is yours to shape. And when you align your actions with virtue, you find something invaluable: clarity. Overthinking often thrives in uncertainty. We agonize over decisions because we're not sure what truly matters. But when you focus on virtue, the path becomes clearer. Instead of wondering what's the right choice, you ask, what kind of person would I be proud to become? This shift doesn't just simplify decision-making, it grounds you in purpose. The Stoics believed that by acting virtuously, we align ourselves with nature and reason, creating a sense of inner harmony that quiets the noise of overthinking. Take the example of Cato the Younger, one of Stoicism's most steadfast figures. Cato lived in a time of political chaos, yet he remained unwavering in his principles. Even when faced with immense pressure to compromise, he chose integrity over convenience. His decisions weren't always easy, and they certainly weren't popular, but they were rooted in virtue. Cato's life is a testament to the power of living by a moral compass, a compass that guided him through uncertainty and kept him anchored in what truly mattered. So, how could focusing on virtue help you make better decisions? Imagine you're at a crossroads, unsure which path to take. Maybe it's a career decision, a relationship choice, or even a moral dilemma. Instead of getting lost in the what-ifs, you ask yourself, what would a wise and courageous person do? What choice aligns with my values? This simple question cuts through the mental clutter, helping you see what's truly important. Virtue isn't about perfection, it's about intention. It's about striving to be the best version of yourself, even when it's hard. And here's the beauty of it: when you act with virtue, you're not just making better decisions, you're building a life you can be proud of. The Stoics knew that true fulfillment comes not from external validation, but from the quiet confidence of knowing you've lived with integrity. Now take a moment to reflect. What virtues do you admire most? Is it courage, kindness, honesty, or something else? How could focusing on these qualities guide your choices and reduce the mental noise of overthinking? By anchoring your decisions in virtue, you'll find not just clarity, but a deeper sense of peace, a peace that comes from knowing you're living in alignment with your highest ideals. Virtue isn't just a philosophical concept, it's a practical tool for navigating life's challenges. When you focus on being the person you want to be, the rest begins to fall into place. Overthinking loses its grip, and in its place, you'll find a quiet strength, a strength that comes from knowing you're living a life of purpose, one virtuous choice at a time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig." This simple yet profound idea lies at the heart of Stoic self-reflection, a practice designed to help us pause, look inward, and gain clarity in the midst of life's chaos. For the Stoics, self-reflection wasn't just a habit, it was a tool for living with intention. By taking time to examine our thoughts, actions, and choices, we can untangle the mental knots that lead to overthinking and find a deeper sense of peace. The Stoic practice of daily reflection is remarkably practical. At the end of each day, they would ask themselves questions like, what did I do well? Where did I fall short? What can I improve tomorrow? This wasn't about self-criticism, it was about self-awareness. By reviewing the day with honesty and curiosity, they could identify patterns, learn from mistakes, and reinforce what was working. It's like holding up a mirror to your mind, not to judge, but to understand. In today's world, this practice might look like evening journaling. Instead of scrolling through your phone or letting the day's worries replay in your head, you take a few minutes to write. You might reflect on moments when you felt calm and focused, or times when you got caught up in overthinking. The act of writing helps externalize your thoughts, making them easier to process. It's a way to step back and see the bigger picture rather than getting stuck in the details. Here's a simple way to start. Each night, ask yourself 3 questions. First, what went well today? This helps you focus on the positive and cultivate gratitude. Second, what challenged me? This allows you to acknowledge difficulties without letting them overwhelm you. And third, what can I do differently tomorrow? This shifts your focus to growth and possibility rather than regret or worry. Self-reflection isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about noticing where you are so you can move forward with intention. The Stoics believed that by regularly examining our lives, we could align our actions with our values and reduce the mental clutter that leads to overthinking. It's a practice that builds clarity, resilience, and a deeper connection to yourself. So, as you close this day, take a moment to reflect. What did you learn about yourself today? What moments brought you joy, and what challenges taught you something new? By making self-reflection a daily habit, you'll find that the noise of overthinking begins to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence in your ability to navigate life with purpose and peace. Overthinking is like spinning your wheels in mud. You expend a lot of energy, but you don't actually go anywhere. It's a trap that keeps us stuck in our heads, analyzing every possible outcome until we're paralyzed by indecision. The Stoics, however, had a different approach. They believed that purposeful, deliberate action was the antidote to overthinking. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it plainly: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. In other words, clarity comes from movement, not from endless deliberation. The Stoic emphasis on action isn't about rushing blindly into decisions. It's about focusing on what's within your control and taking steps, no matter how small, to move forward. Think of it this way: you can't control the outcome of a project, but you can control whether you start it. You can't guarantee the success of a relationship, but you can choose to show up with kindness and effort. Action shifts your focus from the abstract to the concrete, from the hypothetical to the real. It's a way of reclaiming your agency and breaking the cycle of overthinking. Here's a practical way to put this into practice. If you're feeling overwhelmed by a big task, break it down into smaller, manageable steps. For example, if you're procrastinating on writing a report, don't think about the entire project, just focus on writing the first paragraph. If you're anxious about a difficult conversation, don't rehearse every possible scenario, simply decide what you'll say first. By taking small, intentional actions, you build momentum and create a sense of progress. Now, let's pause for a moment. What's one thing you've been overthinking lately? Maybe it's a decision you've been putting off, a goal you've been delaying, or a conversation you've been avoiding. What's one small action you could take today to move forward? It doesn't have to be perfect or grand, it just has to be a step. The Stoics would remind you that even the smallest action is better than none, because it shifts you from a place of stagnation to a place of possibility. Action isn't just about achieving results, it's about building confidence. Every time you take a step, no matter how small, you prove to yourself that you're capable of moving forward. Over time, this creates a positive feedback loop. The more you act, the less you overthink, and the more empowered you feel. It's a reminder that progress isn't about having all the answers. It's about being willing to take the next step, even when the path ahead isn't perfectly clear. So, what's your next step? What's one thing you can do today to break free from overthinking and start moving forward? Remember, the Stoics didn't wait for the perfect moment. They created it through action. And in that action, they found not just clarity, but a sense of purpose and peace. The power to move forward is always within your reach. All you have to do is take the first step. Who supports you in times of uncertainty? It's a question worth asking, because no matter how much we try to navigate life's challenges on our own, we all need a support system. The Stoics, often seen as solitary figures, actually placed great value on community. They believed that shared wisdom and mutual support were essential for living a good life. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, spent years writing letters to his friend Lucilius, offering advice, encouragement, and perspective. These letters weren't just philosophical musings, they were a lifeline, a reminder that even in the pursuit of self-mastery, we don't have to go it alone. For the Stoics, community wasn't about seeking approval or validation. It was about learning from others and sharing the burden of life's challenges. Seneca's letters to Lucilius are a perfect example. In them, he doesn't just lecture, he listens, reflects, and engages in a dialogue. He acknowledges Lucilius' struggles and offers practical advice, all while reminding him of his own strength and potential. This exchange of ideas and support is what makes community so powerful. It helps us see ourselves more clearly and gives us the courage to keep moving forward. In today's world, this might look like reaching out to a trusted friend or mentor when you're feeling stuck. It could be as simple as saying, "I'm overthinking this, what do you think?" Or, "I need someone to help me see this from a different perspective." The act of sharing your thoughts with someone else can be incredibly freeing. It helps you externalize your worries, gain new insights, and realize that you're not alone in your struggles. But community doesn't have to be limited to one-on-one conversations. It can also come from books, podcasts, or even online forums where people share their experiences and wisdom. The key is to surround yourself with voices that uplift and challenge you, that remind you of what's possible and help you stay grounded in what's true. So, who can you turn to for guidance when you're overthinking? Is there someone in your life who listens without judgment, who offers perspective without pushing? Or maybe it's a community of like-minded individuals who inspire you to grow. The Stoics would remind you that reaching out isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom. By leaning on others, you not only lighten your own load, but also create connections that enrich your life in ways you might not expect. In a world that often feels isolating, community is a lifeline. It's a reminder that we're all in this together, navigating the same uncertainties and striving for the same peace. So, the next time you find yourself caught in a spiral of overthinking, remember, you don't have to face it alone. Reach out, share your thoughts, and let the wisdom of others guide you back to clarity. After all, the journey is always easier when you have someone to walk it with you. Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This idea of simplicity is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, a reminder that true richness comes not from accumulating more, but from appreciating what we already have. In a world filled with endless distractions and constant demands, simplicity offers a way to cut through the noise and focus on what truly matters. When we strip away the excess, we create space for clarity, peace, and intentionality. Think about it. How much of your mental energy is spent managing clutter, whether it's physical clutter in your home, digital clutter on your devices, or even emotional clutter in your relationships? Each of these distractions pulls us away from the present moment, feeding the cycle of overthinking. The Stoics believed that by simplifying our lives, we could free ourselves from unnecessary burdens and focus on what's essential. Take a modern example, decluttering your workspace. Imagine your desk is covered in papers, sticky notes, and random items. Every time you sit down to work, your eyes dart from one thing to another, pulling your attention in a dozen directions. Now picture that same desk clean and organized with only the tools you need for the task at hand. That simplicity creates a sense of calm and focus, allowing you to work more effectively and think more clearly. The same principle applies to our mental spaces. Just as physical clutter can overwhelm us, mental clutter, like holding onto grudges, replaying old mistakes, or worrying about things we can't control, can weigh us down. Simplifying doesn't mean ignoring your thoughts. It means choosing which ones deserve your attention. It's about letting go of what no longer serves you and creating room for what truly matters. So here's a question to reflect on. What could you simplify in your life to find more peace? Maybe it's clearing out a drawer, setting boundaries with your time, or letting go of a resentment you've been carrying. Simplicity isn't about deprivation, it's about liberation. It's about creating a life that feels lighter, more intentional, and more aligned with your values. The practice of simplicity is a gift you give yourself. It's a way of saying, I don't need all this to be happy. By reducing distractions and focusing on what truly matters, you not only quiet the noise of overthinking, but also open the door to a deeper sense of contentment. In a world that constantly pushes us to want more, simplicity is a radical act of self-care, one that brings us back to the present moment and reminds us of the beauty in less. Overthinking has a sneaky way of shrinking our world. It pulls us into a narrow tunnel where every problem feels enormous and every worry seems insurmountable. But what if the key to breaking free from this mental trap lies not in solving every detail, but in stepping back and seeing the bigger picture? The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that perspective is one of the most powerful tools we have, a way to transform how we see our challenges and, in turn, how we respond to them. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that our struggles often look different when we view them from a higher vantage point. The Stoic practice of broadening our perspective isn't about ignoring problems or pretending they don't exist. It's about seeing them in context, recognizing that what feels overwhelming today might look smaller tomorrow. Picture yourself standing at the base of a mountain. From that angle, the peak seems impossibly high, the climb daunting. But if you step back, or better yet, if you imagine looking down from a plane, the mountain becomes just one part of a vast landscape. The same is true for our challenges. When we zoom out, we often realize that what seemed like a crisis is just one moment in a much larger story. This shift in perspective isn't just philosophical, it's practical. Let's say you're facing a difficult decision at work. You've been overanalyzing every detail, paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong choice. Now, imagine looking at this decision from the perspective of your future self 5 years from now. How important will this choice feel then? Will it even matter? By reframing the problem, you may find that the stakes aren't as high as they seem. Or perhaps you'll see that the challenge itself is an opportunity, a chance to grow, to learn, or to prove your resilience. Here's a question to reflect on. How could a broader perspective help you see your situation differently? Is there a problem you're overthinking that might look smaller if you viewed it in the context of your entire life? Or perhaps a challenge that could be seen as an opportunity for growth? The Stoics would urge you to step back, to rise above the immediate noise, and to see your life as a whole. When you do, you'll often find that what felt like a mountain is just a hill, one you're more than capable of climbing. Broadening your perspective isn't about dismissing your struggles. It's about empowering yourself to face them with clarity and courage. It's a reminder that your challenges, no matter how big they feel, are just one part of a much larger journey. And when you see them that way, you'll find that overthinking loses its grip, replaced by a quiet confidence in your ability to navigate whatever comes your way. What are you trying to prove? It's a question that cuts to the heart of so much of our overthinking. Whether it's striving for perfection at work, seeking approval from others, or constantly comparing ourselves to those around us, so much of our mental energy is spent trying to prove our worth. But here's the truth: the more we chase external validation, the more we trap ourselves in cycles of self-doubt and anxiety. The Stoics had a different approach. They believed that humility, a quiet confidence in who we are, without the need for constant recognition, was not just a virtue but a pathway to peace. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most profound teachers, was born into slavery and faced unimaginable hardship. Yet he didn't let his circumstances define him, nor did he seek to prove his worth to others. Instead, he focused on cultivating inner strength and living in alignment with his values. He taught that the ego, our desire to be seen, admired, or validated, is the root of much of our suffering. When we let go of the need to prove ourselves, we free ourselves from the endless cycle of overthinking and self-criticism. Humility, in the Stoic sense, isn't about diminishing yourself or downplaying your achievements. It's about recognizing that your worth isn't tied to external measures of success, a job title, a social media following, or someone else's opinion. It's about finding contentment in who you are, not in what others think of you. This shift in mindset can be incredibly liberating. When you stop trying to prove your value, you create space to simply be. Think about it. How much of your mental energy is spent worrying about how you're perceived? Are you overthinking conversations, second-guessing decisions, or striving for perfection because you're afraid of being judged? The Stoics would remind you that these concerns are distractions, noise that pulls you away from what truly matters. By embracing humility, you let go of the need to control how others see you. You focus instead on living with integrity, kindness, and purpose. So, how could humility help you find peace? Imagine a life where you're not constantly seeking approval or validation. Where you're free to make mistakes, to grow, and to learn without the weight of judgment from others or from yourself. That's the power of humility. It's not about shrinking yourself, it's about expanding your sense of self-worth beyond external measures. The next time you catch yourself overthinking, ask yourself, what am I trying to prove? And more importantly, who am I trying to prove it to? The answers might surprise you. By embracing humility, you'll find that the noise of overthinking begins to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence in who you are and the life you're building, one rooted in authenticity, not approval. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." These words capture the essence of the Stoic practice of letting go, a practice that challenges us to release our grip on what we can't control and focus instead on what we can. Overthinking often stems from our attachment to outcomes, whether it's the perfect job, the ideal relationship, or even the approval of others. The Stoics understood that clinging to these external results only leads to frustration and anxiety. Instead, they encouraged us to focus on our own actions and intentions, trusting that the rest will unfold as it should. Think about social media, for example. It's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of likes, comments, and followers' metrics that feel like validation, but are ultimately outside our control. You can post the best content, craft the most thoughtful caption, and still not get the response you hoped for. The Stoics would remind you that your worth isn't tied to those numbers. By letting go of the need for external validation, You free yourself from the mental tug of war and create space to simply enjoy the process of creating and sharing. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means shifting your focus from the outcome to the effort. It's about finding satisfaction in the work itself rather than the result. Imagine you're planting a garden. You can water the soil, give the plants sunlight, and nurture their growth, but you can't control how fast they grow or how many flowers they produce. The joy is in the tending, not the harvest. The Stoics believed that by detaching from outcomes, we could find peace in the present moment and trust that our efforts are enough. So, what are you holding onto that you could release? Is it a goal you've been obsessing over, a relationship you're trying to force, or a fear of what others think? Take a moment to reflect. What would it feel like to let go of that weight, even just a little? The Stoics would remind you that true freedom comes not from controlling everything, but from accepting what you can't and focusing on what you can. Letting go is a practice, not a one-time event. It's about training yourself to see challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities to grow. It's about trusting that even when things don't go as planned, you'll find a way forward. And in that trust, you'll discover a deeper sense of peace, a peace that comes from knowing you've done your best, regardless of the outcome. The next time you catch yourself overthinking, ask yourself, what am I trying to control that's beyond my reach, and what would happen if I simply let it go? By releasing what you can't control, you'll find that the weight of overthinking begins to lift, leaving you lighter, freer, and more present in the life you're living right now. Overthinking often begins with fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. It's that nagging voice in your head that whispers, what if it doesn't work out? What if I'm not good enough? But here's the truth, fear doesn't disappear on its own. It grows stronger the more we avoid it. The Stoics, however, had a different approach. They believed that courage, one of their core virtues, was the key to breaking free from the grip of overthinking. Not the kind of courage that eliminates fear, but the kind that helps us move forward despite it. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, wrote extensively about bravery. He saw courage not as the absence of fear, but as the ability to act in the face of it. Sometimes, he said, even to live is an act of courage. This idea is deeply empowering. It reminds us that courage isn't about grand, heroic gestures. It's about the small, everyday choices we make to confront our fears and take steps forward, even when we're unsure of the outcome. So, how can we cultivate this kind of courage in our own lives? Start small. Think of courage as a muscle. It grows stronger with use. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting when you normally stay quiet, or trying something new that feels a little outside your comfort zone. These small acts of bravery might seem insignificant, but they build momentum. Each time you face a fear, no matter how small, you prove to yourself that you're capable of handling uncertainty. Over time, this creates a ripple effect, boosting your confidence and reducing the mental chatter that fuels overthinking. Let's bring this into focus with an example. Imagine you've been putting off a difficult conversation, maybe with a friend, a colleague, or even yourself. You've rehearsed every possible scenario in your mind, but the fear of how it might go keeps you stuck. Courage, in this case, isn't about having all the answers or guaranteeing a perfect outcome. It's about taking the first step, scheduling the conversation, choosing your words, and showing up with honesty and openness. Even if the outcome isn't what you hoped for, you'll know you acted with integrity, and that, in itself, is a victory. Now, here's a question to reflect on. What fear is holding you back from taking action? Is it a decision you've been avoiding, a risk you're afraid to take, or a challenge you've been overanalyzing? The Stoics would remind you that courage isn't about eliminating fear. It's about refusing to let fear dictate your choices. Every time you act in spite of your fear, you weaken its hold on you. Courage, in the Stoic sense, isn't just a virtue, it's a practice. It's about showing up, taking the next step, and trusting that even if things don't go as planned, you'll find a way through. It's a reminder that the only way to truly conquer overthinking is to act not when you're ready, but when you're afraid, because it's in those moments of uncertainty that you discover just how strong you really are. When was the last time you sat in silence? Not the kind of silence that comes from scrolling through your phone or zoning out in front of the TV, but real, intentional silence, where it's just you and your thoughts, undisturbed by the noise of the world. In our fast-paced, always connected lives, silence has become a rare commodity. Yet, for the Stoics, it was a vital practice, a way to quiet the mind, gain perspective, and break free from the endless cycle of overthinking. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoic philosophers, regularly retreated into silence to reflect on his thoughts and actions. His meditations, a series of personal writings, were born out of these moments of solitude. In those quiet hours, he wasn't just thinking, he was observing, questioning, and grounding himself in what truly mattered. For Marcus, silence wasn't about escaping the world, it was about reconnecting with himself. It was a space where he could step back from the chaos of leadership, the demands of his role, and the noise of his own mind. The Stoics believed that silence wasn't just the absence of sound, it was the presence of clarity. When we quiet the external noise, we create room to hear our own inner voice. Overthinking thrives in distraction. It feeds on the constant buzz of notifications, the chatter of other people's opinions, and the pressure to always be doing something. But in silence, we can untangle those mental knots. We can separate what's important from what's merely urgent, and we can find the stillness needed to think clearly and act intentionally. Here's a practical way to bring this into your own life. Set aside just 5 minutes each day to sit in silence. No phone, no music, no distractions, just you and your breath. You don't need to meditate or force yourself to think deeply. Simply allow your mind to settle. If thoughts arise, observe them without judgment and let them pass like clouds in the sky. Over time, this practice can help you build a sense of inner calm, making it easier to navigate life's challenges without getting lost in overthinking. Now take a moment to reflect. How could silence help you find clarity? Could it be a way to step back from the noise of daily life, to process your thoughts, or to reconnect with what truly matters to you? The Stoics would remind you that silence isn't just a break from the world, it's a return to yourself. It's a space where you can listen to your own wisdom, free from the distractions that pull you in a dozen directions. In a world that never stops talking, silence is a radical act of self-care. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. By carving out moments of stillness, you'll find that the noise of overthinking begins to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence in your ability to face whatever comes your way. Epictetus once said, "No great thing is created suddenly." This simple yet profound statement captures the essence of patience, a virtue that not only helps us endure life's uncertainties, but also quiets the noise of overthinking. In a world that glorifies speed and instant results, patience can feel counterintuitive. Yet, it's precisely this ability to wait, to trust the process, and to let things unfold in their own time that can bring us peace in the midst of chaos. Overthinking often stems from a desire for control, a need to know exactly how things will turn out and when. But life rarely follows a linear path. Careers, relationships, and personal growth don't happen overnight. They require time, effort, and most importantly, patience. When we rush or try to force outcomes, we create unnecessary stress and mental clutter. Patience, on the other hand, allows us to step back, to trust that progress is happening even when it's not immediately visible. Take career growth, for example. Imagine you've been working toward a promotion for months, maybe even years. You've put in the effort, taken on new challenges, and proven your value, but the opportunity hasn't come yet. It's easy to spiral into overthinking, wondering if you're on the right path, if you're good enough, or if you should just give up. But patience reminds us that growth is a process, not an event. It's about planting seeds and tending to them, even when you can't see the roots taking hold. So, what are you rushing that could benefit from patience? Is it a personal goal, a relationship, or perhaps a creative project? The Stoics would remind you that patience isn't about passive waiting, it's about active trust. It's about believing in the value of your efforts, even when the results aren't immediate. When you embrace patience, you free yourself from the mental strain of overthinking and open the door to a deeper sense of calm and confidence. Patience is more than just a virtue, it's a practice. It's about learning to find joy in the journey, not just the destination. It's about recognizing that some of the most meaningful things in life take time to develop, and that's okay. The next time you catch yourself overthinking, take a deep breath and remind yourself, progress doesn't always come with a timestamp. Trust the process and trust yourself. In that space of patience, you'll find not just peace, but the strength to keep moving forward, one step at a time. Overthinking has a way of building walls between us and the world, between us and the people we care about, and even between us and ourselves. It pulls us into a spiral of self-doubt, judgment, and isolation, making it hard to see the bigger picture or connect with others. But what if the antidote to this mental isolation lies in compassion? The Stoics, often seen as stern and unemotional, actually placed great value on empathy, not just for others but for ourselves. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most compassionate voices, wrote, "We should bring ourselves to think of all people as our fellow citizens and neighbors." This idea of shared humanity reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles, and that extending kindness both inward and outward can be a powerful way to break free from overthinking. Compassion in the Stoic sense isn't about pity or indulgence, it's about understanding. It's recognizing that everyone, including ourselves, is doing the best they can with the tools they have. When we're caught in cycles of overthinking, we often forget this. We judge ourselves harshly for mistakes, dwell on perceived failures, and compare ourselves to impossible standards. But what if, instead of beating ourselves up, we approached our struggles with the same kindness we'd offer a friend? That's the essence of self-compassion, a practice that can transform how we relate to our own mind. Let's bring this into a real-life scenario. Imagine you've just experienced a setback. Maybe you didn't get a job you wanted, or a project you worked hard on didn't go as planned. It's easy to spiral into overthinking. What did I do wrong? Am I not good enough? But here's where compassion comes in. Instead of criticizing yourself, pause and ask, what would I say to a friend in this situation? Chances are you'd offer them encouragement, not judgment. You'd remind them that setbacks are part of growth, that their worth isn't defined by one outcome. Self-compassion is about extending that same understanding to yourself. Seneca often emphasized the importance of empathy in his teachings. He believed that recognizing our shared humanity could help us navigate life's challenges with greater grace and resilience. When we see others as fellow travelers on this journey, it becomes easier to let go of judgment, both of them and of ourselves. This shift in perspective doesn't just reduce overthinking, it fosters connection, reminding us that we're all imperfect, all learning, all trying to find our way. So, how could compassion help you find peace in difficult moments? Take a moment to reflect. Are there areas of your life where you're being too hard on yourself? Are there situations where extending kindness to yourself or others could lighten the mental load? The Stoics would remind you that compassion isn't a sign of weakness, it's a source of strength. It's a way of grounding yourself in what's real and meaningful, even when the noise of overthinking threatens to pull you under. Practicing compassion isn't about ignoring your struggles or pretending everything is fine. It's about meeting those struggles with understanding and care. It's about recognizing that you're human, that you're allowed to make mistakes, and that you're worthy of kindness from others, yes, but most importantly, from yourself. When you approach life with this mindset, overthinking loses its grip. In its place, you'll find a deeper sense of connection, resilience, and peace. And isn't that what we're all searching for? A way to live fully without being weighed down by the noise in our minds? What have you learned from your past mistakes? It's a question worth asking because every misstep, every failure carries a lesson, if we're willing to look for it. The Stoics believed that wisdom wasn't just about accumulating knowledge, it was about learning from experience, about turning setbacks into stepping stones. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most profound thinkers, often reflected on his own failures, not with regret but with curiosity. He saw every challenge as an opportunity to grow, to refine his understanding of himself and the world. For him, wisdom wasn't a destination, it was a journey, one shaped by the lessons of the past and the choices of the present. The pursuit of wisdom in the Stoic sense is deeply practical. It's not about having all the answers, it's about asking the right questions. When we overthink, we often get stuck in a loop of self-doubt or fear, replaying what went wrong or worrying about what might go wrong. Wisdom interrupts that loop. It invites us to step back and ask, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? This shift in perspective doesn't just reduce overthinking, it transforms it into a tool for growth. Take Seneca's own life as an example. He faced exile, political upheaval, and personal loss, yet he didn't let these experiences define him. Instead, he used them as opportunities to reflect, to write, and to deepen his understanding of human nature. In his letters, he often returned to the idea that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of it. Every mistake, every challenge is a teacher, offering lessons we can't learn any other way. So, what lessons have you gathered from your own journey? Maybe it's a moment when you realized that perfection isn't possible, or a time when you discovered resilience you didn't know you had. The Stoics would remind you that wisdom isn't about avoiding mistakes, it's about embracing them as part of the process. When you approach your past with curiosity rather than judgment, you'll find that the weight of overthinking begins to lift, replaced by a sense of clarity and purpose. Now, here's a question to reflect on. What lesson could you take from your current challenges? Is there a situation you're overthinking that might hold a hidden insight? The Stoics believed that every difficulty carries a lesson, and that by seeking wisdom in our struggles, we can turn even the hardest moments into opportunities for growth. The next time you feel stuck in a cycle of overthinking, remember, the wisdom you seek is already within you. All you need to do is look for it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, because an artful life requires being prepared to meet and withstand sudden and unexpected attacks." This powerful metaphor reminds us that life isn't about perfection or constant harmony. It's about finding balance amid the chaos. For the Stoics, balance wasn't just a nice to have, it was a cornerstone of living well. They believed that equilibrium in all things, work and rest, action and reflection, ambition and contentment, was essential for inner peace and resilience. The Stoic ideal of balance isn't about splitting your time evenly between every responsibility or goal. It's about aligning your priorities with what truly matters, so you can navigate life's demands without losing yourself in the process. Think of it like a scale. When one side becomes too heavy, it throws everything off. The key is to recognize when one area of your life is consuming too much energy and to make adjustments before the imbalance takes its toll. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you're juggling a demanding job, family responsibilities, and personal goals. At first, you might push through, telling yourself you'll rest later. But over time, the lack of balance starts to show, maybe in your energy levels, your relationships, or even your mental health. The Stoics would remind you that rest isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Just as a bow that's always stretched tight will eventually break, so too will a life that's out of balance. By intentionally carving out time for rest, reflection, and connection, you create the space needed to thrive in all areas of your life. So, what area of your life feels out of balance? Is it work crowding out time for family, ambition overshadowing contentment, or perhaps it's the opposite, too much leisure leaving you feeling unfulfilled? The beauty of balance is that it's personal. What works for one person might not work for another. The Stoics would encourage you to reflect on your own life, to identify where the scales are tipping, and to make small, intentional adjustments to bring them back into alignment. Balance isn't a one-time achievement, it's an ongoing practice. It's about tuning into your needs, honoring your limits, and making choices that support your well-being over the long term. When you find that equilibrium, you'll notice a shift not just in how you feel, but in how you approach life's challenges. Overthinking loses its grip, replaced by a sense of calm and clarity that comes from knowing you're living in alignment with what truly matters. The next time you feel overwhelmed or off-kilter, pause and ask yourself, what would balance look like right now? Sometimes it's as simple as taking a walk, saying no to an extra commitment, or spending an hour doing something that brings you joy. The Stoics knew that a balanced life isn't about doing everything, it's about doing what matters most. And in that focus, you'll find not just peace, but the strength to keep moving forward, one balanced step at a time. Overthinking doesn't just clutter the mind, it saps your energy. The endless mental loops of what if and why didn't I leave you feeling drained, stuck, and overwhelmed. But here's the good news: resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks, can be your greatest ally in breaking free from this cycle. The Stoics saw resilience as more than just a trait. It was a virtue, a skill to be cultivated through practice and perspective. Epictetus, who endured immense hardship in his life, taught that endurance wasn't about avoiding pain or difficulty, it was about learning to move through it. He famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This idea is at the heart of Stoic resilience. It's not about being unbreakable, but about finding strength in the face of challenges. Resilience, in the Stoic sense, isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. Think of it like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And just like physical training, building resilience starts small. Maybe it's tackling a task you've been avoiding or having a difficult conversation you've been putting off. These small challenges might seem insignificant, but they're the foundation of greater endurance. Each time you face a challenge, no matter how small, you prove to yourself that you can handle discomfort and uncertainty. Over time, this builds a kind of mental toughness that makes overthinking less likely to take hold. Here's a practical way to start. Identify one small challenge you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a project at work, a personal goal, or even a habit you've been meaning to change. Instead of overthinking it, take one small step toward it today. The key isn't to solve it all at once, it's to take action, even if it's imperfect. By doing this, you're not just building resilience, you're also breaking the cycle of overthinking. Now let's pause for a moment. What's one challenge in your life that you could face with greater resilience? It might be something you've been overanalyzing or postponing. The Stoics would remind you that resilience isn't about avoiding difficulty, it's about meeting it head-on with courage and clarity. When you approach challenges as opportunities to grow rather than obstacles to avoid, you'll find that overthinking loses its grip. Resilience isn't just about bouncing back, it's about moving forward. It's about recognizing that every challenge, no matter how difficult, is a chance to build strength, to learn, and to grow. The next time you feel drained by overthinking, remember, resilience is your anchor. It's the quiet strength that reminds you that you're capable of more than you think. And in that strength, you'll find not just peace, but the courage to keep going one step at a time. Who do you need to forgive, including yourself? It's a question that cuts to the heart of so much of our inner turmoil. Overthinking often thrives on unresolved emotions, anger, resentment, or regret that we carry like heavy weights. The Stoics, however, saw forgiveness as a powerful tool for releasing these burdens. They believed that holding on to grudges, whether against others or ourselves, only prolongs suffering. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most compassionate voices, wrote extensively about the freedom that comes from letting go. He saw forgiveness not as an act of weakness, but as an act of strength, a way to reclaim peace and move forward with clarity. Seneca's letters often touched on the futility of harboring resentment. He argued that grudges don't harm the person who wronged us, they harm us. They take up mental space, drain our energy, and keep us stuck in the past. In one of his writings, he advised, anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. This insight reminds us that forgiveness isn't about excusing someone's actions. It's about freeing ourselves from the emotional chains that bind us. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine someone betrayed your trust, a friend, a colleague, or even a family member. It's natural to feel hurt, even angry. But overthinking the situation, replaying the betrayal, imagining what you could have done differently, only deepens the wound. Forgiveness, in this case, doesn't mean you have to reconcile or forget what happened. It simply means choosing to let go of the resentment so you can move forward with your life. Now, here's a question to consider. What grudge could you release to find peace? Is it an old argument that still weighs on you? A mistake you can't seem to forgive yourself for? Or perhaps it's a resentment toward someone who doesn't even realize they hurt you? The Stoics would remind you that forgiveness isn't about the other person, it's about you. It's about choosing to stop carrying a burden that no longer serves you. Forgiveness isn't always easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice, one that requires patience and self-compassion, but the rewards are profound. When you let go of grudges, you create space for peace, clarity, and connection. You stop being a prisoner of the past and start living fully in the present. So take a moment to reflect. Who do you need to forgive, and what would it feel like to release that weight, even just a little? Forgiveness isn't just a gift to others, it's a gift to yourself. And in that act of letting go, you'll find the freedom to live more fully, more peacefully, and with a heart unburdened by the past. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." These words capture the essence of living with purpose, a concept that can transform how we approach life's challenges and quiet the noise of overthinking. When we have a clear sense of direction, the endless what-ifs and should-Is lose their grip. Purpose acts like a compass, guiding us through uncertainty and helping us focus on what truly matters. Overthinking often thrives in the absence of clarity. Without a clear sense of purpose, we can feel adrift, pulled in a dozen directions by competing demands and distractions. But when we align our actions with a deeper sense of meaning, we create a framework for decision-making that cuts through the mental clutter. Think of it like navigating a ship without a destination. You're at the mercy of the waves. But with a clear course, you can steer confidently, even through rough waters. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you're working toward a long-term goal. Maybe it's building a career you're passionate about, raising a family, or contributing to a cause you care about. When you connect your daily actions to that larger purpose, the small decisions, what to prioritize, how to spend your time, become easier. You're no longer paralyzed by overthinking because you know what matters most. Even setbacks feel less overwhelming when you see them as part of a bigger journey. Here's a question to reflect on. What gives your life meaning and direction? Is it a personal mission, a relationship, or a creative pursuit? The Stoics would remind you that purpose isn't about achieving perfection or external success. It's about living in alignment with your values and making choices that reflect what's truly important to you. When you have that clarity, overthinking loses its power. Instead of spinning in circles, you move forward with intention and confidence. Purpose isn't something you find, it's something you create. It's about identifying what matters most to you and using that as a guide for your decisions. Whether it's through your work, your relationships, or your contributions to the world, living with purpose gives you a sense of direction that can quiet the noise of overthinking. And in that space, you'll find not just peace, but a deeper sense of fulfillment. So, as you go about your day, ask yourself, how can I align my actions with my purpose? It might be as simple as choosing kindness in a difficult moment, dedicating time to a passion project, or making a decision that reflects your values. When you live with intention, you're not just reducing overthinking. You're creating a life that feels meaningful, one purposeful step at a time. As we come to the end of this journey, let's take a moment to reflect on the timeless Stoic principles we've explored, tools that can help us break free from the endless cycle of overthinking and find a deeper sense of peace. At the heart of Stoicism is the dichotomy of control, the simple yet profound idea that we can only control our own thoughts, choices, and actions, not external events. By focusing on what's within our power, we stop wasting energy on what we can't change and start reclaiming our mental clarity. We've also seen the importance of presence, learning to anchor ourselves in the here and now, rather than getting lost in regrets about the past or worries about the future. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, confine yourself to the present. It's in this moment, right now, that we have the power to act, to choose, and to live fully. And let's not forget resilience, the ability to face challenges with courage and adaptability. Epictetus, who endured immense hardship, taught us that resilience isn't about avoiding difficulty, it's about finding strength in the face of it. It's not what happens to you, he said, but how you react to it that matters. Together, these principles, control, presence, and resilience, offer a roadmap for navigating life's uncertainties with grace and intention. They remind us that overthinking doesn't have to control us. Instead, we can choose to focus on what's within our power, to live fully in the present, and to meet challenges with strength and clarity. Epictetus once said, "No one is free who is not master of themselves." This is the essence of Stoic wisdom, finding peace not by changing the world around us, but by changing how we see it. When we stop overthinking and start living with intention, we discover a freedom that comes from within, a freedom to face life's ups and downs with calm and confidence. So, as you move forward, I encourage you to reflect on these principles. How can you apply them in your own life? What's one area where you can let go of overthinking and embrace a more Stoic approach? Whether it's focusing on what you can control, practicing presence, or building resilience, each small step can bring you closer to inner peace. If you found this exploration of Stoic wisdom helpful, consider subscribing for more insights and practical advice on living with intention and clarity. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you plan to apply these principles to stop overthinking and find peace? Share your reflections in the comments below. Together, let's continue this journey toward a calmer, more purposeful life. Thank you for joining me, and remember, the power to change your mind and your life is already within you.